So we pulled the transmission out.
We did.
We found we have a good Saginaw, which is bad, and a bad Muncie, which is good.
Right.
The Muncie we have is actually a 65 primary case with a 70 tail shaft housing on it, meaning we are pretty much open field. We can do whatever we want with that transmission because we don't really know what was originally in the car other than it was a Muncie because that was typical for 1970. Today what I want to do is I want to take the bell housing down, see what the rats have done to the inside of that bell housing and to the flywheel. So I'm going to put you in the mix a little bit, get your hands dirty on your own car. Now, Bill has admittedly not done anything like this before in his life. He's never pulled a bell housing off. He's never done a clutch or any of that kind of stuff.
Nope.
So it's going to be a new experience for him. But what I wanted to do before we got started with anything else is we've been threatening him with something for the last few weeks. So I went ahead and I got him his very own Hot Wheel.
You did find one.
I did find one. It's the cheap one. It's not the expensive one. There was one that was the right color and everything, but I wasn't going to spend $12.
That's cool, man.
There you go. So you got you. Well, you know, that should satiate you until we get this thing done sometimes in 2050.
Yeah. So do I get to take it out of the package? Or
When you walk out of here, that's your car. You can do whatever you want. Have you noticed that the packaging isn't as big as it used to be when we were kids? The packaging was like this. It was
actually I'm 1 decade older than this.
really. That's
Yeah.
true. You are one
Yeah.
decade older than this.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. There's your first Hot Wheel, so you can start collecting.
Thank you.
Anyway, we're going to get busting on this, taking this flywheel and stuff out of here to check everything out. I'm going to tell you how that has to work out. Going to get busy right now. All right, first things first, if you're going to be working on taking the bell housing assembly out of here, you're going to want to take the starter down because it just makes things a little bit easier. Always, always, always disconnect the battery first, because if you don't, you stand a chance of arcing across here, seeing lots of sparks, possibly catching your car on fire, and that could be bad. So what I'm going to do after I've done that, because we haven't had a battery in this thing for an embarrassingly long time, I'm going to go in and start taking the primary wire off of here, and I'm working blind so you guys can see what I'm doing. Otherwise my big fat head would be in the way. It's 11/16 on this starter, which kind of stunned me a little bit. I'm not sure why that's so stinking large. We have a smaller one here. I'm going to find where that one goes with my hand. Pretty sure that's either a 5/16 or a quarter. Looks like a 5/16. Sometimes when people will use these small ring terminals from the auto parts store, they're a pain to get off. Ah, there we go. I'll pull that over and put it on the frame to get it out of the way. Now I'm going to need some wrenches to take the starter out. And there's 2 bolts on here. There's one here and one here on a GM starter. We're going to pull those 2 down. The starter should drop out. Yeah, it's a 1/2 inch. They're using 11/16 to, hold everything together, but they're going to use a 1/2 inch to hold the starter in. It's not supposed to do that. That one was loose. I call it hand tight, but it was pretty darn loose. If you have a loose starter on a car, that can cause you a real problem for it wanting to jump around whenever you're trying to start the car. You'll have a potential for chewing teeth up too. That one's loose too. Cool. These big old starters. Sometimes I like the idea of a mini starter because they're just lighter. Okay, other things out. Ooh. Now, it looks to me like these are specific for a GM starter. They actually have a knurling on the shaft right here on the shank. So you may want to make sure that you don't lose these suckers. Put them with the starter, or if you're really ambitious, put them back in the block for right now to keep them out of the way. All right, so the first thing you want to do is you're going to take that clutch spring off, and I would use a small pair of vice grips, grab onto that spring and pull it, click it over, make sure the thing's locked, because it's a lot easier to hold onto that than it is to hold onto the spring.
Oh, that was easy.
I didn't say it was going to be difficult. Just that's the first thing you need to
I'm
do.
expecting.
Now, what I would do is I would go through and take off all the lower bolts, especially the ones on the flex plate between the engine and the bell housing. So take the little 1/2-inch bolts, any of the ones that are on the bottom half of that off with the 1/2-inch wrench that you
As soon as I
have
figure
around
out,
there somewhere.
as soon as I figure out where I put it.
This is a perpetual problem. Is that it?
That's 7/16.
No,
That's it?
that's it. Why did I put it over
Okay,
there?
it's not a 1/2-inch bolt, it's a 7/16. Bill gets attacked by a light immediately. Way to go, Jackson.
I've said this on my channel. These are unbelievable.
What
wrenches.
did we do before this? Like Dremel
know,
tools,
I know
same
it.
thing. What did we do before them?
I just love these ratcheting wrenches.
Except on mine, it's a 50-50 chance of being wrong, and 90% of the time I am. I actually got one trapped once.
I can see that happening, actually.
I managed to work it out, but boy, was I hacked by the time that was over with.
You know, you didn't tell me I was going to get muddy.
Well, it's your engine, and it's leaking oil.
It
At the
is.
rate of the Exxon Valdez, I might add. I have to put a drip tray under this thing, and I think all the oil is probably out of the pan by now. There you go. That was a way so that you could check things without having to pull everything apart.
I see mice stuff.
Now, we've already pulled the throwout bearing out of this when we pulled the transmissions out last week. We're going to go over all these parts, diagnose them, and take a look at them, but we got to get that bell housing off first.
All right, so okay if I start at the top?
Have you got the other ones off? Yes. I would go ahead and get the ones around the perimeter, and the last two that I like to take the last two out are the two on the very top. That way I've got, they're hanging on to everything while I'm getting those other bolts off. You still have dowel pins that are in the block, but I find that sometimes those dowel pins aren't super friendly. Go, Bill, go. They like that one's on there tight. They did a good job with that.
Oh, Lord. That one's not coming out.
Okay, I'll have to go get the impact. I'll be right back. We're going to have to do something that I don't like to do on universals and use an impact with a non-impact universal. It can be very dangerous. So I'm going to bump in here, put my glasses on, and take care of loosening these things up for Bill, because if that blows apart, I don't want him to get injured. I don't want me to get injured either, but I would feel less bad if it's me. So here we go. Beep, beep. Universals are also going to make it where the impact doesn't work quite as well. Wow. That is impressive that they have done that tightly. I might have to get a 9/16 1/2 inch after this and use the breaker bar. If the green one doesn't do it, that's kind of a shocker, actually.
Oh, yeah.
They really, they wanted that one to stay in there, I'll tell you. See, I gotta have the universal for that. Problem with the universal is it reduces your torqueability. I don't know if that's a 9/16. It is. Strong like bull. And I'm not talking about older. This should be tight, but that is unreasonably tight. Wow. It should not be that tight. All right, I'm gonna have to get a breaker bar after that one. All right, I've got my breaker bar in here with a impact long socket, and it's an oddball angle underneath here. I've already gotten one of them loose off camera. Look, that son of a gun. I have not seen anything quite this tight in a while. There is really no reason for it to be as tight as they're running that. I'm gonna have to get a shorter 1/2 inch, try to get on that one. And these two up here, I'm hoping I can get with the impact. Hoping they're not quite as tight as that one is. Gee, Bill, you tightened those up so you didn't have to work on them, huh? This is why this is dangerous. You can see that the pin's dropping out of the impact trying to get that to come out. That's why I don't like using these with an impact, but I don't have a 9/16 universal. There's an impact driver universal. That's one of the dangers right there that you're gonna have to watch out for. So I'm gonna not be able to use the impact on this. I'm gonna have to go back to my 3/8 long. I'm a little perplexed because you have a loose starter, and yet the bell housing bolts are so tight. I'm having to grunt, and I'm not one to need to grunt a lot while I'm working on a car. I'm not going to take these all the way. I'm going to let Bill take the rest of that. Just getting them loose for it. Because it's his car.
I'm feeling pampered here.
You should. Oh, golly. I don't even want to know what kind of foot-poundage that set at. Must have put it on, and whoever did this was probably mad at your brother about something and decided to use an impact wrench on it. I'll show him. Whatever. Again, you should not be doing what I'm doing. Don't try this at home, kids. It's dropping out. It's not budging. One of those things, it should be a 15-minute 4-bolt job, and it's like... I'm going to have to get a 1/2 inch and try to see if I can use the breaker bar on it. Whew. That's some spooky stuff. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through these components and kind of look at everything individually and see what we need to do here. I'm already going to tell you right now that with us having found the stuff inside of the bell housing, it looks like a rat's nest. I am going to go in and replace the clutch and pressure plate. We're not going to screw around with what's already here, but I want to go through and give you some diagnosis on what you can look for. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cover the bell housing. Now, the reason we had the rat's nest problem is the boot for the bell housing is completely ruptured. You can stick your finger up inside here and I can actually feel the rat's nesting inside of the boot. I'm going to flip this over. All right, so what you're going to do is, you're looking at wear problems on here. You want to make sure you don't have any issues on the forks. I'm going to just briefly install the throwout bearing on here, because I'm going to talk about the throwout bearing next. You want to make sure that it's sitting well, that the clips are holding it in position, that it's not able to walk around a ton. You want to check your bearing for whether it's got good spin to it. That's a little bit noisy, but not unusual. But the bigger problem I see here is the wear groove that is actually on this from the throwout bearing, probably riding on the diaphragm clutch, which I'm going to move to next. The other things you're going to want to look at is whether this ball here on the back side of it is worn out. You'll also want to look at the ball over here on the very end. This one can be more of a problem than the one in the center because there's a lot more pressure being applied to it. The one inside here is more of a ride surface. This one right here is actually, you know, where all the pressure is being applied to the system. So whenever you're pushing your clutch in, this is going to end up seeing more wear, and if this is worn out, you're not going to be able to adjust the clutch the way you want to. Now I'm going to pull the bell housing out. This will all end up getting cleaned up, cleaned out, so it's going to look really nice when we get done with it. But for now, we're definitely going to want to replace the throwout bearing. I think our clutch arm is going to be okay. Now, your throwout bearing I just showed you interfaces with this part of the diaphragm clutch. Now, I'm more familiar with the three-finger style clutch that Ford used. You see these arms here, that would effectively have 3 different arms coming off of it that would ride the throwout bearing when you're applying the clutch. It's what causes the pressure plate to lift off of the clutch to allow you to make your shifts. On a diaphragm, I'm not sure that we're right here because it feels like these should probably be on the same level, and they're not. There's some that are lower, some that are higher, and I would think that you would want these to ride fairly level, that there shouldn't be any difference in the diaphragm teeth. If there's a difference and you know about it and you say, yeah, that's perfectly normal, leave me a comment in the section below and we'll talk about it. This one, the facing of the clutch is pretty heated, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit more with the flywheel, but there is some bluing and checkering. This one also sat up for a pretty good while, and you can see that there is some rust damage on the face. That's not good for the clutch. This kind of a problem with rust and heat spots in here can cause chattering in your clutch. So even if we didn't have the rat's nest problem, I would probably want to go ahead and replace this clutch because of some of the hot spots I'm seeing on here, the bluing. I don't really see a ton of checkering, but I do see pitting from this car sitting damp a lot and the clutch actually getting damage on the face of it from just the damp air from being up in the Northeast and sitting in a garage, possibly not even in a garage and just under a lean-to or whatever. So this can become more of a problem for that if the car is not driven frequently. And a lot of times we don't. I mean, let's face it. So that's kind of an issue there. So if you're running into some problems with chatter, most likely you're going to have an issue with either the clutch having bluing on it or the flywheel. I'm going to pull that in here in just a minute, but I'm going to talk about the actual clutch itself. All right, I'm going to pull the clutch in. The clutch actually, it's not too bad. You can see a wear pattern developing in here. I don't know if that's from something that got in on the clutch. Again, with the big hole being in there, any kind of debris can get inside here and wreak havoc on your clutch, especially if, say, some dirt or debris got in there and can leave marks on things. This is, I believe, the side that faces the flywheel. There's also corresponding marks on the actual flywheel that tie into what I'm seeing on the clutch. This is the side that faces the diaphragm or the clutch itself. And you can see there is a mark here, and there's also a corresponding wear mark on that. Plenty of clutch surface still left on this one, so if I weren't worried about what I'm worried about, I could possibly reuse this clutch, but I would also have to reuse the original pressure plate, because if you don't, it's going to chatter. So chattering is a problem with clutches. Last but not least, we're going to talk about the flywheel. A couple of things to know about flywheels on any old car. Number one is this flywheel is going to need to be resurfaced. There's pitting and things on here. My biggest concern is if we take it in and have it resurfaced, are they going to be able to pull it down enough without going outside of minimum safe tolerances on the flywheel? It can be a real issue for that. This one has a pretty good hot spot here. You can even feel it in the metal. This has actually gotten blued right here, and there's a couple of other areas that are a little bit blued. I have seen much worse than this, to the point that where there's actually check marks inside the areas where the clutch got hottest. Anytime you have checkering, bluing, any of that stuff, your material is a little different in those areas, so you're going to end up with a problem with potential chattering. Sometimes you can't take that out and you have to replace the flywheel. Luckily, it's a small block 350, so you can go down to your local drugstore and buy a flywheel for it probably. Let me see if I can get this thing to flip over without pinching my hands. The teeth on this actually look pretty good overall. And you can see where where the mouse nest was. Like I said, I don't think they actually got in here and used this as their toilet. This was a nesting area because there's nothing in here indicative of that. There's no huge rust spots because of the high ammonia nature inside of a rat's nest whenever it's being used as a toilet. There would be huge amounts of rust in here, and I just don't see it. Usually, well, not usually, sometimes on these flywheels around the outside perimeter, they will give you a minimum safe on here for the flywheel. But you can also check that by looking at this bevel here. If that bevel that's right here, right there, where my fingernail is running, if that bevel is gone, there's not enough flywheel left for you to cut. As soon as that goes away, you're done. You're going to have to replace the flywheel. This one's in nice shape though. Spinning it around on the tabletop here. All the teeth look good. I'm not missing any teeth. I was going to make a joke about that, but because I'm actually missing some teeth. So it actually is in really good shape. I think we can probably take this one down to our local machine shop, have them resurface the flywheel, replace the clutch and pressure plate, and when we put the 383 that we got from the guys at Summit in here, we should be able to go in and rework and use this flywheel. There's nothing to see here other than more of the nesting material. I think I need to go wash my hands. Well, we have the clutch out of it. Next we're going to be coming back with taking the engine out of here in preparation for putting the 383 small block that we got from the guys at Summit back into this car in the future. But we are going to want to go in and detail the engine bay on this thing. So that's kind of where we're at. Bill, so you've taken your first bell housing off, sort of.
Sort of.
Well, who knew that people that worked on this car in the past were Herculean in their strength? Either that or they put impact to it. That's the only thing I can come up with. There's no reason for those bell housing bolts to be as tight as they were. They don't need to be finger tight, but they need to be looser than what they were, because that's just kind of excessive for a bell housing bolt. All right, guys, so do me a favor. Be kind to each other, love on each other, treat each other nice. You guys have a great week, and we'll see you next time on
Auto Resto Mod. Did I get that one right?
Good at this.
Got that one right.
Got it right.
So, one other thing.
What?
Because I'm filming for my channel, I'm filming behind the scenes of you filming your channel.
Dear Lord.
So somewhere after you put these all up, I'll put mine up where it's, how does Jeff Ford and Auto Resto Mod film? You're all invited to that too. I'll make him tell you when.
Yeah, whenever he does it, we'll let you. We may let you know.
Or not.
Or maybe not. Yeah. It depends on how I feel. I'll probably tell you though, because I mean, I look like an idiot on camera. I might as well look like an idiot behind camera too, right?
That's actually the really cool stuff.
What, me being an idiot or behind the camera?
Behind the camera.
Oh, okay. Idiot's pretty funny too, though, isn't it? See ya.
Bye, guys.